is Michael Poynton on stage at the Paris Studio in London's West End, introducing the man who's made the world laugh for 40 years. Ladies and gentlemen, Norman Wisdom. Norman, this week we want to talk about your films. On your first picture, I believe you had a slight disagreement with the director. What was that about?
We had to do a scene. This was in Trouble in Store. We did a scene in Selfridge's window. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And, oh dear God, I was the window dresser. I'd been promoted and I was getting a chance to prove how good I was. And so I was in the window there with people looking through from Oxford Street, and I put the cup on the teapot spout and the jug on the teapot handle, and the salt and pepper went on the top of the lid, and the teapot, and it was all to... And Paddy Carstairs, the director, said, no. Look, you're a window dresser. You've got to do it straight. You do it properly. I know, I said, I'm a window dresser, trying to be successful, but making mistakes. And all of course, Paddy Carstairs was a smashing bloke, but he used to have a different hat on every day, and when I said, he took his hat off and put it on the floor. I kicked his hat away, shoved off from the set and left it. And he was about 10 minutes gone, and I went, oh dear, what am I going to do? And he came back and said, well, all right, you ready? I said, yeah, okay. And he said, well, which one are we doing? I said, yours. He said, good. I said, no, mine. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, if we do it your way and then do it my way, Paddy, and then we can see it in Rushes tomorrow. You know, of course, you don't see it till the following day in the Rushes Theatre. So we did it his way and did it my way, and then we went into the Rushes the following. And believe me, it had got round all this. Normally you just have the director and the cameraman and myself and a couple of other people. The theatre was packed with of course, dear. And they showed Paddy's first, and they looked at it and they were amused. And then they showed mine and they went... Oh, really, no. And it was a big laugh. And Paddy, I was sitting next to Paddy Carstairs, he just put his hand out and said, Norman, and we shook hands, and he said, from now on we talk. So that we became good friends, and that's why I was able to do...
Yeah. Of course, you did come up against him once later on for a different reason. Tell us about that, Norman, with the square peg.
Jack Davis wrote the script for the square peg, and it was a good script. I totally enjoyed that one. And then he had the idea, because there was got to be a German general in the script, he had the idea of me playing the German general as well, doubling, with a scar down here. And Paddy Carl says, no, that's ludicrous. We've got to have a good, straight actor for that part. And Jack Davis said, no, I think Norman can act. And Hugh Stewart, the producer, he said, yes, we'll leave it as it is. And they're both against Paddy, so they had to do it. Now, when we came to rehearsal, and I'm in the uniform and that sort of thing, Paddy Carstairs said, action, and walked away to his desk. And I was going through the lines. I was determined to do it as good as I could with all the German accents and all that sort of thing. And he gradually started to go... And he was... And you know what, he said, cut, and he walked across and kissed me. On the cheek. But he was so pleased, he kissed me and ruffled my hair, and that's it, and I was the German... Have you seen that film, The Square Peg? Well, I was the German general in that.
Tell you what, Norman, let's hear how that scene finally reached the screen, one of the key scenes. Here you are as the German general enjoying an assignation with Hattie Jakes.
Ever since the night I heard you sing Brunhilde in Berlin, I have been your slave.
Oh, that was a long while ago.
We have had many jovial meetings since then, huh?
Oh, yeah, so harmonious. And each time you are so much better since the time before.
Then what are we waiting for?
Ich will gern in aller sein, ich grübe gern in jedem Kieselstein, ich möchte sehen, ob jedes frische Wild mit grasser Namen, der es schnell verrät, ob jeder weiße Zerfall möchte ich schreiben. Heil ist mein Herr, und heil ich bleibe.
Norman Wisdom and Hattie Jakes in The Square Peg.
That was, by the way, that was me as the German general. But, of course, I had to come on again as, you know, as me, ordinary Norm, as the German general who was substituting for the role. And I had to sing that with Hattie Jakes, and she wasn't supposed to know. And it was something like this. Dein ist mein Herz, dein ist mein Herz, and the boy don't fall like on the boy from flies to home, and I'm the high of my wife's long, and she's looking... Well, she was a terrible giggler. And, it was fun, though.
Well, you told me about one of your favourite lines from one of the films, Stitch in Time. Tell us about that scene, because it was lovely.
Well, yeah, Stitch in Time, and that's the story about the little girl whose parents had been killed in a plane crash, and she was in bed, and she would not, in any circumstances, talk to anybody. She would just sit like that. And I'd just escaped in the hospital. If you've seen the film, I was in the dentist and I'd pull the lady's 2 front teeth out in error, you see. And she was having a bit of a moan, I don't know why, but... She was saying... Anyway, I ran from the dentist and ran into the ward and then hid under a bed, and it happened to be the little bed, the bed that the little girl was in. And I looked up from the bed and I said, anybody about? Is it all? No. And she looked down and looked away. And I said, well, say something. And she said, no. And then she started to talk to me. Do you remember that? And she was talking to me and beginning to talk. And I'm the only person she's spoken to since this terrible accident. And the matron caught me by the arm, turned me around, looked at me and smiled in the face and said, you must have a gift. And I said, no, I don't want anything.
The film with a very dangerous stunt in it, Norman. Tell us about that.
I was in St John's Ambulance Brigade, and they'd got me and they'd tied me all up in bandages and then plastered me in white plaster from head to toe. Even the head was bandaged up. And then I was on the table, and they suddenly got invited to a football match, which they knew was off. And I wanted to go to the football match as well, but they just left me, so I managed to roll off the table, and I got into a wheelchair and got to the top of the stairs and eased down the stairs slowly, and then it got out of the control, and then down there, and I smashed through the wall at the bottom of the stairs, which was plaster, I must say. And I came through the wall on the wheelchair just as the ambulance came under the archway, landed on top of the ambulance, which turned left and then sharp right, which shot me off the top of the ambulance, right through a window, right through a glass. It was toffee glass.
Yes?
I went through it quick, so I didn't have a chance to eat any of it, but... And then you cut to inside the ward, and I hit the floor, which was polished wood, slid right across the floor, smashed into the wall on the other side of the ward, just as the doctor came in and said to the nurse, what's this man doing out of bed? Anyway, the thing was that I reported for duty, as it were, in the morning, and Bob Asher, who was the director, he came over and he said, you won't be doing this stunt. No. I said, why? I always do the stunts. No, let's have fun. He said, no. He said, look, I've engaged a stuntman, so forget it. And so the stuntman, he said action. When it came to it, I'm sitting in the chair just watching like this, almost bored, and the stuntman came through the wall on top of the ambulance, slid off the top of the ambulance and broke his arm. I was sorry for him, but then they started to walk over towards me because they didn't want to spend the waste of time, and I had to do the stunt anyway and finish. And I always, from that time, nobody ever argued. I did my own stunts because I like having fun.
Most of the movies were made at Pinewood, weren't they?
Yes, that's right.
And didn't you meet Marilyn Monroe there once?
Oh. Yeah. Well, she was making a film with Laurence Olivier. What was it called? The Prince and the Showgirl. Prince and the Showgirl, that's right. Mm. She's making a film, and I went onto the set just to look at her from a distance. And, of course, I was a scruffy little devil. I wouldn't even go anywhere. And she didn't even notice me. Then all of a sudden, one afternoon, she came on the set to watch me. I didn't meet her, which was, I was disappointed about. And then a couple of mornings later, I was walking down the long corridor at Pinewood, and she came out and walked up this way, and she's about 10 yards from me, and I thought, oh dear, and she stopped, and she said, that's little Norman. And she ran over and she caught hold of me and kissed me a smashing. Really. And she walked off, left me in a heap. Oh, but it was lovely.
Well, while we're on lovely ladies, one that you did work with was Margaret Rutherford. Tell us a bit about her.
I did Trouble in Store first of all, and I must say, you know, she was beautifully spoken, all that sort of thing, and she was, if anything, a little shy, really. And after 3 or 4 days of the show, she's passed me and said, "Good morning, dear boy," and that sort of thing, and I began to think, I think she's a bit of a snob. Then one morning, I was eating a bacon sandwich, which I like to have a bacon sandwich in the morning, and it was all crispy and hard. And I'm eating this bacon sandwich, and she stood about 5 or 6 yards away, and she said, "What are you eating?" And I thought, well, I'll answer in the same way. I said, a bacon sandwich. And she said, "Well, can I have a bite?" It was lovely, so she had a bite. Nearly all gone it was. But, and every morning, almost without exception, we used to have a bacon sandwich. Every morning, she was lovely, and it was all cuddled and lovely. And, oh, marvellous, lovely woman.
Well, we can hear you working with Margaret Rutherford here in Just My Luck.
Good.
You're visiting her home. She's an eccentric Irish lady with a parrot on one knee and a chimpanzee on the other. She insists on showing you the family album.
It's Josephine's bath night, so I'll carry on if you don't mind. Shake the young gentleman by the hand, Josephine. What do you think of the young man? What do you think of him? She's a bold girl. That's another one of me, in India.
Yes.
Oh, look, that's my late husband. Look now.
Oh.
Me late husband.
Oh.
No, not that one. That's a warthog.
Norman Wisdom and Margaret Rutherford. And alas, that's all we've got time for today. Join us again next week, won't you? Ladies and gentlemen, Norman Wisdom.
Norman Wisdom has been dispensing a wealth of wisdom in conversation with Michael Poynton, who also researched the programme. A Wealth of Wisdom is produced by Edward Taylor.